politics. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth, where the great debate continues. Not the debate between the followers of Amir Hussein Mousavi and President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in Iran. No, not the debate between President Obama and Republicans over health care, but the debate among Republicans about how to resist Obamanism and how to make a comeback, how to become relevant again on issues like health care, which the President of the United States addressed today. And you've heard all of the extremes on this, the extremes represented by, you could say, on the one hand, Colin Powell, who basically left the Republican Party and now wants to be welcomed back and to change the Republican Party. And people like my friend and colleague Rush Limbaugh, who say that basically what you need to do is to say the same things we've always said, but to say them louder and slower. Is it one or the other? There's a book that I like very much, and I think you will as well, which I think says the right answer, which is it's not simply enough to restate the same appeals we've always restated, nor is it appropriate to abandon conservative principles and to change the essential nature of the Republican coalition. The book is called Grand New Party, How Republicans Can Win the Working Class and Save the American Dream. It's now out in paperback, and that's why I'm very privileged and find it a great pleasure to welcome back to this show someone who's been a true friend of the show, Reihan Salam. Reihan, congratulations on the paperback release.
Thank you very much, Michael.
And I know you've also had something to say about the events in Tehran and the elections and the foreign policy, which of course is not covered extensively in your book, and we will get to your book in just a moment. But first, maybe you could say a few words about what everyone seems to be missing about the Iranian elections.
I would love to. I think that right now, Barack Obama has a fantastic opportunity, if he chooses to take it, to be the Ronald Reagan to Iran's Soviet Union. In the Soviet Union, before Gorbachev came on the scene, that state was on the absolute ropes. They appeared to be tough, fearsome, formidable, yet in truth they were a paper tiger. They had an incredibly weak economy. There was tremendous discontent in the population because the Soviet state was frankly not delivering the goods, a basic, decent quality of life for the Russian people. And if you look at Iran today, the exact same thing is happening. You're revealing that the promises of the Islamic Revolution were entirely hollow, and this tiny, corrupt military elite that promotes military adventurism and aggressive foreign policy for Iran, they're the ones who are increasingly controlling the state. And they're doing it for their own betterment, they're doing it for their own ideological purposes, and they're doing it to enrich themselves in a spectacularly corrupt way. So I think that state is really on the verge of a meltdown. And I think that Obama, by taking a kind of strong stance on the issue, could really do a lot to create a new, better regime there.
And when you say taking a strong stance, you mean saying something other than we will extend our hand if you will unclench your fist, that sort of thing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think what he needs to do is say something like, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. He needs to say, Mr. Khomeini, tear down this wall of oppression that is particularly harming the women of your country, but certainly all of the people of your country who want, Iran to be a peaceful and prosperous nation.
Am I correct? Are you Iranian American?
I'm not. But my family is Muslim, and I do have a lot of basic affection for the large majority of Iranians who are chafing under the rule of this brutal regime that has created a kind of a sham democracy, and a sham that's been revealed to the whole world as a sham with this last election.
Yeah, I mean, again, you said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. How about Ayatollah Khamenei throw out this election? And
Absolutely.
What is particularly disturbing is the number of people on cable television, particularly MSNBC, who are comparing this to Florida in 2000, where they weren't shooting people in the streets, I don't think. But again, this is it seems to me, exposes for all the world to see the hollowness of the Obama foreign policy so far. And one of the things that you talk about in your book is the need to expose the hollowness of the Obama promises to the working class. And when you take a look at the unemployment rate, is there reason to believe, Reihan Salam, that kind of exposure is underway?
I think that what Americans want is job creation. They want private sector job creation. They don't want Potemkin jobs. They don't want make-work jobs. They don't want, dying industries to be propped up only to see them get, torn away a little bit later. They want to see a real, robust, private sector-led economic recovery. And I think that that's the problem. I don't think of Barack Obama as a bad guy, but I just wonder whether or not he has the mettle to make some of the difficult decisions. Ronald Reagan, when he first came into office, accepted that, I'm going to be hated. There's going to be about a year and a half where I'm going to be absolutely hated because I'm going to make the difficult calls that we need to get this economy back on track. And I don't know if President Obama has a stomach for that. So that's what I worry about.
Would I be correct in assuming that based upon your book, Brand New Party, How Republicans Can Win the Working Class and Save the American Dream, it's posted up on our website in the brand new paperback edition, and anybody who hasn't read it yet should take a look at it, because I think some of the arguments and ideas in the book, even some of them that I don't necessarily agree with, are energizing and important. I would be correct in saying that in this shouting match between so-called Republican moderates and conservatives, you would say that both sides should refocus and look specifically at working-class voters.
Absolutely. I think that when you're looking at the country, there is a tremendous amount of discontent, and it's been there for a long time, over wage stagnation. When you look at the housing boom that we went through and that's now come crashing down around us, in a way it was this kind of artificial bomb that created the illusion of prosperity for a lot of working class folks. People were able to use their houses as ATMs. You had a lot of construction jobs that were basically good, well-paying jobs. And then once, the bubble burst, suddenly all that goes away. And states like Florida and Arizona and California are really suffering as that's gone away because we didn't really focus on the fundamentals of our economy. And to some degree, I think the fundamentals of our economy are about character as much as they are about regulation. But I think that that's a place where conservatives really ought to have been making a strong case, and they didn't always.
Yeah, there was an interesting point. I was in Washington, D.C. last night on a panel with Stephen Moore and Douglas Holtz-Eakin, who was the economic advisor for Senator McCain, and Stephen Moore, of course, of the Wall Street Journal. And Douglas Holtz-Eakin made the point that with the $100 billion, that we've committed to General Motors, that same amount of money could have bailed out not just the state of California, but 5 other of our most broke states. And it's kind of a tough thing to say to people that we're going to be bailing out this one American car company, and we're going to say no to state government establishments that are in deep, deep trouble now.
I think that's very, very true. And it's amazing when you hear about the deliberations within the White House over GM and Chrysler. There were some folks who were saying, well, we should let Chrysler go down because that will actually make life easier for GM. And maybe that's actually true. Maybe they should have done that. But it's amazing to think that there are folks in the White House who are really deciding which of these firms is going to live or die. And that it's not happening the old-fashioned way through market competition. I think that, Bush also, tried to give a bridge loan, tried to keep these guys alive so that his successor could make the tough calls. I think that, again, this is not a matter of anyone being a bad guy. This is a matter of trying to defer some economic pain, so that you don't have to take the political heat for it, maybe, but also just out of sheer indecisiveness, maybe. It's hard to say, but it is very, very worrisome. How many of these zombie corporations are we going to prop up with this money that could be going to make investments in our country's future?
Is there a future for American manufacturing?
Oh, I absolutely think there's a future for American manufacturing. But I think that American manufacturing needs to retool itself for a different, more aggressively competitive world. And I think that, propping up these firms is not going to get us there.
Yeah, and again, this was another point that was made last night. Instead of spending $780 billion on a stimulus package, think of what stimulus could have been created if all of a sudden you had had a suspension of corporate taxes for a while, or even a suspension of taxes for everyone for a while. That kind of stimulus could be far more creative and effective in the national discussion. What exactly can Republicans do on the issues of health care, the issues of wage stagnation, the issues of jobs fleeing overseas? They're fascinating and provocative answers to all of that in the new book, Brand New Party. How should Republicans redefine themselves, if at all? We'll continue the conversation with your calls for Reihan Salam.
1-800-955-1776. Michael Medved.